Good morning, Don't Unfriend Me Nation. Matthew Spear. I've recorded this 16 times. It keeps going on too long. I've got too much to say in too little time because what I'm doing is trying to hamstring myself because people are like, get to the point. Hurry up. There's too much talking in this talk show. And then I go look at their page and they've got 27 minutes of Mark Levin just spewing. Or Dan Bongino in a 30-minute podcast. And I'm like, this is it's so real. Listen to him. He's so amazing. Yeah, Dan Bongino is amazing. So is Mark Levin. They also have 47 writers. I got me. So I got to somehow put all my thoughts together. So I used to write it down. I used to give you 3,000 word shows and I would literally read it from a teleprompter. He's reading. He just needs to be himself. All right, fine. I'm myself. He runs around in circles. He talks too much. Listen, people, shove it. Okay? My show, my dollar. When you invest in all of this, you can go ahead and have your own show. And you can call it, I'm a real quick person who gives a show that lasts 30 seconds. This is Don't Unfriend Me, okay? If you don't like it, pop smoke. Tired of it. There's no way that I can talk about what I talk about in 2 minutes. And if you're a 2-minute person, go see your wife or husband. They will accommodate. Me, I'm not doing it. So here it is. It's simple. This might take a little longer than you're used to. The right, conservatives, are not Nazis. And the left, Democrats, are not communist socialists. There, I've said it. I've said it. Just like in 2014, okay? Sharia law was not coming to the United States. Muslims were not going to take over. Didn't happen. Complete lies. We were in no possible way, in any way, shape, or form, was Sharia law coming to the United States. And the fact that the Tea Party sold this makes them one of the biggest crocs ever. And the same thing is happening today. Fascism is not coming to the United States. It's not here in any way, shape, or form, except there is a party who are using the annals of history to perpetuate that we are. Now, the interesting thing is that maligns them with fascists. Now, am I saying that the liberals are the Nazi party? No, I'm not saying that. But am I saying they are certainly trying to say that conservatives are? They are. And are they using Nazi tactics to do so? Yes, they are. I'm going to show you 2 videos. First one is a propaganda video. 100% propaganda. Nothing in it is accurate. Nothing in it is true. Every site source are from liberal media that have no business talking about the topics that they do. I'm going to show you the examples. New York Times, Fortune magazine, Rolling Stone. Really? Where's the ESPN articles? Because ESPN is now political. You can't hear anything on any channel that doesn't have to do with politics nowadays. But this video, don't kid yourself. It is a Goebbels type video. It is Nazi Germany propaganda where nothing is true. It's fear mongering. It is horrendous. And these people should absolutely be condemned by the Democrats and Republicans universally throughout the United States. Because this shit is what starts culture wars. It's what starts civil wars. It's what starts violence against opposing parties. Because no more is it about political ideologies, about focusing on should we have higher taxes or lower taxes? Should we have big government or small government? Do we believe in traditional family values or progressive family values? These are the things, the lines of delineation between Republicans and Democrats that have been going on forever. But now it's border walls and security, which was never a controversial thing. Abortion, which was only in the case of an emergency when there were no other options. That's the way it was espoused to be. These are the things that are now controversial. Gun ownership was never an issue. Sure, should people have automatic weapons? We discussed that. We've already fixed that. But having a gun in the back of a car, having a rifle, having a handgun in the glove box, wasn't an issue. It was always about people who shouldn't have guns, criminals. It was never about American citizens. Democrats didn't give a shit about that. But now this is what it's become, where every issue absolutely has to have a polar opposite. We agree on nothing. We don't even agree on supporting Ukraine. Half people say yes, half people say no. Everything is all about getting in your lane, getting out. And if you somehow cross the line and step a toe into the conservative right, or you step into the progressive left, all of a sudden you're a Dino or a Rhino, Democrat in name only, Republican in name only, and you're a traitor to the cause. What the hell's going on? The only way you get things done in Washington is crossing the aisle. We know this. How do you expect to get anything done if all you do is draw lines in the sand and say, I'm not going to toe across it? I called Lauren Boebert a bad politician and people flipped out on me. 47 pieces of legislation she sponsored or co-sponsored. It's either out of committee or in committee. It's never going to pass. There's not enough supporting members because it's all trash legislation that's completely so hard to the right that it can't get anywhere outside of the Freedom Caucus. The same thing happens to the left with Swalwell and AOC. Is their shit so progressive? It sits in committee or outside of committee, has no chance of being passed. They're bad politicians. And people get upset at me. How dare you? Well, you know what you should be upset about? You should be upset about stuff like this. No matter what side you're on, because this is the stuff that's eroding who we are as a people. It's eroding who we are because it's lies. I'm going to break it down for you right now. Listen to this.
Wrong is just wrong. You know it when you see it.
But it's by Toni Morrison. She won a Nobel Prize for literature.
We know better.
We know better. I tuck my polo into my Levi pants and I wear sneakers. No, you wear cowboy boots and you don't wear a JCPenney belt. And you certainly don't have bootcut jeans on. Plus, that's a $500 trash can on Amazon. We've all seen the ad. It's the one with the perforated holes. It's stainless steel. It's like this big. It looks like a bathroom trash can. No, that would be a cow trough for watering that would have a bunch of an old twigs and half of frickin' the trash of the day in it. It would be a half of a cut cake from 1962 with Amstel in it that we go ahead and cut it in half and we put a bunch of tree trunks and let that thing on fire. Or we just grab some rocks. We wouldn't buy a $500 trash can. Can you say liberal elite made this video? But even after all of that, trash can on fire, book bans rising rapidly in U.S., free speech group fines. Bullshit. New York Times. Here's a wonderful source. It's not. There haven't been any book bans outside of the anarchist cookbook and pedophilia and a bunch of other stuff that's not good for the world. And we all agree that that stuff should not be readily available. Nobody's banning books. Nobody's burning books. Now, you might find some video. Matt, here's a video. Oh my gosh, look at this video. Somebody burned a book at a rally. Well, they burn flags too, and they burn cities. But not everyone does that. And yes, it happens. But nobody's burning books. What is this, Ava Braun? This is 1940 Germany? This video is. Simply holding people accountable to their age and understanding that, yes, there's things that they need to see and there's things that they don't. This is why we don't allow them to go to Pornhub or go into stripper bars or smoke cigarettes or drink alcohol or vote or have a gun at a certain age, because parents decide when these things are allowed. And some of the books that are actually being said can't be into these public schools are atrocious. Pedophilia, gardeners being fellatioed by 13-year-old boys. This shit's not okay. Nobody wants to see this. And for liberals who are clutching their pearls right now, you ban To Kill a Mockingbird and Tom Sawyer and Dr. Seuss, rice, pancake syrup, breakfast cereal. Give me a break. The Cleveland Indians, the Washington Commanders. And now Native Americans are actually pissed off and want the name back and nobody will budge. Give me a break. There are no book bannings. Give me a break.
But it's hard to know what to do. Easier to let it go. So you just kick the can down the road.
Wouldn't that guy have an Apple device? No.
Please, I didn't do anything wrong. It was a miscarriage.
It's for the courts to decide, man.
In a post-Roe world, more miscarriage and stillbirth prosecutions await. No, it doesn't. It's ridiculous. Miscarriage and stillbirth prosecutions await. Really? So a woman has one of the most difficult things that can possibly happen to her, and you think she's going to be arrested because she has a miscarriage. Show me the legislation. Oh, Fortune magazine. Fortune! Diving into Roe v. Wade. Folks, In a post-Roe world, it simply means that you can't tie it to the 14th Amendment and make blanket laws through judges because they interpret the law. They don't create law. They don't create legislation. It's not their job. We saw that in COVID. Judges simply interpret the law and the constitutionality. They sent it back and said it was unconstitutional. So now the states can decide. So yes, you might have to work a little harder to murder a child. Okay. You might have to go out of state. You might have to go across county, or maybe just maybe you might have to consider an alternative to having sex and unprotected sex and getting pregnant. But what about rape, Matt? What about Jenny, who's in a wheelchair, has one leg, she's missing an eye, and she got pregnant, and she's a Jewish black lesbian? What's going to happen? I don't know. Thank you for showing me the absolute most impossible case of emotional platitude and have me go ahead and answer that fallacy. I don't know what to tell you, but what I can tell you is using it as a contraceptive is absolutely abhorrent. You want to talk about rape? You want to talk about incest or mother's possibility in danger? Okay, I'll have that conversation. You want to talk about 15 weeks, 12 weeks, 18 weeks? We can have that conversation. But we do not get unfettered access to abortions. And nobody's going to be arresting you because you have a miscarriage. What they're probably going to do is bring you a pot of chili or some stew and some flowers and some 7-Up and give you the biggest hug you've ever had and cry with you and apologize and just beg you to somehow try again, and hopefully this time it takes. Give me a break.
Wrong is wrong. But what can you do?
They want you to think
Isn't he supposed to recycle? I mean, this is a liberal after all.
slavery was all bad, but slaves learned valuable skills, like being a blacksmith.
Okay, I'm a Republican and she's annoying. Like and you know who else is annoying? This lady right here. They're both annoying. You know what I would do? I would remove them both.
It's racist and a lie.
It's in the school curriculum, endorsed by our fine governor.
It's ridiculous. What are you doing?
Those guys look like Proud Boys. Come on. What type of jacket is that? Is that a fly fishing jacket? It looks like a tactical vest. They don't even know. I'm surprised they didn't have fully automatic ammo there.
Let go of me. Stop pushing me.
New Florida teaching standards say African Americans receive some personal benefit from slavery. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it. You ready? Here it is. Real simple. They did. Ancillary benefit happens from horrible situations all the time. People go through cancer. They have life experiences. They have revelations. They give their testimony. Bullies have picked on people. These people will tell you that it made them who they are. They would rather have not gone through it. It was a horrible time, but they learned self-reliance. They learned how to cite people who would prey on other people. People who went through bankruptcy have learned how to financially constrain themselves to live within their means. I'm not saying slavery was good for anybody. It was horrible. Of course it was. It's abhorrent. Nobody wants to say that slavery had ancillary benefit, but it did. Because if you take the African communities and other communities around the world that were taken from indentured servitude or slavery, a lot of these places were a long way behind the United States, a long way behind the innovation and science and technology. And although primitive to our current standards, were revolutionary at the time. And to see that these primitive cultures didn't understand about irrigation, didn't understand about plow sharing, didn't understand about seeding or horseshoeing, learned trade skills. And although those trade skills were earned at the blood, sweat, and tears of an entire group of people who should never have been subjugated to those conditions, rose up and rose from the ashes. It's a phoenix story. And moved closer to a level of freedom and prosperity faster than any other people who were enslaved in world history. You can look at the pharaohs and the Egyptians. You can look at the Uyghurs in China. You can look at Russians and the Cossacks. It's simply not something we should celebrate, but understand that an amazing group of people were resolute and were able to use things that they did learn to prosper in a country posthumously from slavery. There's nothing wrong with that. And this whole setup here of the guy with the red hat and the lady in the red dress and the symbology. It's not black and white symmetry. It's red and blue symmetry. This is all just propaganda. Oh, it's from Politico. Oh, what a reliable source.
politicians who lie are manipulating you so they can gain or maintain power, turning families and friends against each other and often.
As a bunch of politicians ask for more power. Don't you hear it? How can you not see it? How can you not understand that what they're saying is simply the same? It's just a different wing on the same bird. Politicians all crave power. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. It's all the same.
Leading to violence. Surely you have to do something about that, don't you? Because if you keep kicking the can down the road, eventually you run out of road.
Jews will not replace us! One people! One...
Okay, Republicans aren't the ones that are anti-Semites, okay? What the hell are we talking about? The biggest orange anti-Semite, Adolf Hitler 2.0 Donald Trump, did more for the Jewish people than any president in U.S. history. Ever. Recognized Jerusalem. 7 presidents before him campaigned on it. None of them did it. None of them did it. Anti-defamation laws in Florida to protect Jewish Americans who were being targeted and singled out. The only other group that was higher than that was Asian Americans. Jewish Americans are the highest growing demographic that are being targeted with hate crime. Hell, Donald Trump has people in his family by marriage who are Jewish. He must be the worst Nazi ever. He built relationships with Netanyahu, extended arms deals, created 3 peace deals with Jerusalem and the Middle East. What the hell are we talking about? Republicans don't hate Jews. We are Jews. We're not Ilhan Omar and Rashid Tlaib sitting up there and talking about Palestine and making anti-Semitic remarks. Are you kidding me? We're not Barack Obama and Joe Biden who ignored Netanyahu for 8 years and destroyed all ties and sucked up to Iran with pallets full of cash that support terrorism and support strikes into Israel through the PLO. But why are they espousing things about anti-Semitism that have nothing to do with Republicans? Why? Well, because it ties us with the Nazis. That's why. And that's what they're trying to do.
Stop! Those are racist and Nazi slogans. Just stop.
Haven't I seen you around town holding hands with another man?
Okay, there's 246 days to celebrate LGBTQism in the United States today. You're not a minority party. You are no longer ostracized from the. Congratulations. And I'm excited. Now we can celebrate where you put your penis and where you have your vagina. Who cares? 246 days of celebration a year. It's all over the place. NHL, Budweiser. It's all football in our classrooms. Remember when this wasn't about that? Remember when it was just simply about it's not a choice? This is how we're born and we just want to be accepted? Yes, we agree. Yes, 100%. We're behind pride. Yes, good. Yes. But now it's about what? Ensuring that everyone accepts or else ensuring that our children are exposed to it, even though that was the whole point, the whole premise of this is Christians were worried that this would impact our children and people would start trying to convert as it's some sort of newfound religion. Well, if it's not a choice, then why are you marketing to kids? Why are you marketing to the family unit? Enough of this. Let's stop pretending that this isn't crossing a line. Nobody cares if this guy walks around with hand holding. Nobody gives a crap. Brokeback Mountain. Either you turn it off or you enjoy it. Everybody knows somebody who's gay, lesbian, transgender, queer. Nobody cares. The only thing people care about is stop talking about it non-stop. We're sick of it. We don't care where you put your penis. Just do your thing and leave us alone. We just want to go ahead and have our white picket fence and have our 4 kids and have, our meatloaf on the table. We want to watch our sports and we don't want to get involved in this crap. But stop trying to paint us as people who go to Klan rallies, for God's sakes. Give me a break. Give me a break.
It's none of your business.
I disagree.
Jews will not replace
Please.
one people,
This is America.
one nation.
Republican Congressman Paul Gosar's newsletter features a website that calls for readers to stand up for Hitler. The lines of delineation between, it's like 6 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon. There's not a movie that you can't tie him in, up to 6 movies that you can go ahead and name any actor or any actress in the silver screen up till today, and you can tie it to Kevin Bacon. The same thing. The internet is, they're all tied. Yes, some staffer, low-level staffer, linked something that talked about how Paul Gosar is against anti-Semite and warmongering groups. And all of a sudden, because that page has articles on there that are absolutely abhorrent, white nationalist articles, of course they are. That whole page is full of crap. He's now, Rolling Stone says, stands up for Hitler. Do you see how this is absolutely ridiculous? Do you see how there's just absolutely 100% no truth to this? Except for a bunch of delusion. This is a video, and yeah, I know it's going long. U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, Washington, D.C. This is done by ReasonTV. And I want you to listen to this. And there are things that you can tie to conservatism, and there's things you can tie to liberalism. But essentially, you look at this. This is all Saul Alinsky playbook. This is all Groybels type stuff, which is to manipulate the media, the communication, and assign blame to a particular group of people to unite people against them. And once you have the power of hatred and people despising other groups, you can control them very easily. Listen to this.
United States Holocaust Memorial Museum with Steve Luckert, the curator of State of Deception, the Power of Nazi Propaganda.
We wanted to examine the role of Nazi propaganda, how they used it to facilitate persecution, mass murder, and war. When you think about how quick that Nazi rise to power was, that for most of the period of the Weimar Republic, the Nazi Party was largely a joke.
Now, you can take this with the far right or you can take this with socialist progressives, but either way, both are considered a joke. Although we spent most of our time focusing on the bottom 3-4% of America, this is usually what happens. This happens in the retail world and the executive world, is that we spend time focusing on our top 2% and bottom 2% of our people, and we forget the other 96% in the middle, which ultimately destroys whatever team build or whatever focus you have and initiatives you have for the quarter, because you're neglecting the most important part of the people. We're not listening to the 92 to 94% of Americans who don't believe in this crap. We're only focused on the most grandiose and exuberant claims, because that's what's sexy and that's what sells. And the media wants you attached. They want you listening to this. This is a perfect example of that.
1928, the Nazi Party only had 12 seats in the German parliament out of almost 600. But 1930 gets 107 seats. Then 1932, it more than doubles that. They learned how to simplify a message, how to play upon voters' emotions, how to reduce very complicated issues to slogans.
To simplify complicated issues into slogans. It's interesting. Bidenomics. Build back better. Hope. It's amazing. When you take a look at the Don't Say Gay bill, it's all manipulation. It's all about simplifying things into bite-sized pieces. And you're trying to process an entire piece of steak in one bite. So you go ahead and you cut it down into the smallest portions possible, and you spoon feed people ideas that are completely unacceptable and impossible for people to fathom and process at a large scale, and you give it to them slowly over time, and you change the way people think over time. This wasn't one election cycle, but this was a decade of a rise to power. I want you to think how much our political fray, our political ideologies have changed in 10 years. There are lines of similarities in between these things.
This is a Braille copy of Mein Kampf.
A Braille copy of Mein Kampf, contemporaneously. Were people reading this?
Yeah, particularly those that were the propagandists. This was kind of the Bible for them, that they would draw on what was said in there. And of course, excerpts from.
Saul Alinsky playbook, folks. Look it up.
Comps were used everywhere to justify various policies. But this became a bestseller, and Hitler made a fortune off the royalties from this. And it was published in, I think, 16, 17 different languages. These posters inform us a great deal about Nazi thinking and the ways in which they presented images to the public, whether it's of this kind of strong, heroic figure breaking the chains of slavery, this playing upon dissatisfaction with the status quo, the ways in which they engaged in what today we would call niche marketing. So it's women who work in the home, farmers, workers. You don't tend to associate the Nazis with the word freedom, but they used it endlessly.
Now, immediately, people are going to go ahead and associate so many things Republican. The Republican, the red versus the blue of Democrats. Well, that wasn't the way it always was. Look at the 1960s when the state of television came out. It actually was that Republicans were blue and Democrats were red, and that switched over because NBC, ABC, and CBS found that a lot of the graphics and a lot of the visuals that were done by the higher-end networks were using red for Republicans and blue, and then they ultimately switched. It wasn't a conscious choice. It just happened naturally. But of course, we're going to tie the red into Nazi Germany. And when you hear things like freedom, well, the Nazis used it always. Well, so do Democrats. So do Republicans. This isn't mutually exclusive. Both parties talk about freedoms and personal choice. They just talk about different groups achieving it. It's the same type of language on both. And the division responsibility is not just on the left. It's on both sides.
What was the sort of methodology behind choosing these bright red colors?
Hitler talked about how in the early 20s he would create posters for his meetings in red because he understood the way it could provoke people, that it was a way to engage an audience to get them into those beer halls.
So are they...
Colors are used all the time in marketing. Green and yellow are actually spending colors. That's why you see in a lot of advertisement where the price of things are green or yellow. Naturally, people see that and they associate it with dollars or discounts or sales or whatever to drive people in for Black Friday and things of that effect. Colors are used in marketing constantly. And the red usually invokes some sort of emotion or bold or something that stands out as the focal point of the marketing. This is why Hitler used red.
Consciously drawing from the Bolshevik example.
I mean, when Goebbels talked about the power of film, one of the films that he always cited was Battleship Potemkin.
What's happening now after 1933, 1934?
The Nazis saw the importance of controlling the media, this Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda. It was created as a cabinet-level post for Joseph Goebbels, who also was in charge of the Nazi Party's propaganda apparatus.
So in the state, this means newsreels, films, books, radio, libraries. Here we have the big political show of the National Socialists. The two attacks on Jews as both being capitalists and communists and Bolsheviks, confused and silly, but apparently effective. So how does one prepare the population for this kind of machinery of destruction?
There is an effort made to both present the Jews as a real physical threat to Germany, and also to identify Jews as being the powers behind the enemy. They would show these Soviet atrocities.
This is where the comparison contrast is so evident. And this is where you have to shift the focus onto Democrats, that they do this constantly, that we are the problem. Republicans aren't sitting here saying that LGBTQ people are the problem in the world today, that African Americans are the problem today, that Hispanic people are the Americans today. None of that's being said. You're not hearing those things, okay? You're hearing some choices that are made within those groups that we take umbrage with and we want to keep out of our living room, keep out of our house. There's nothing wrong with that. We have every right to do that. The Jews didn't agree with Nazi Germany and the Nazis didn't agree with the Jews. But if you look at the 1920s, 1910s, leading up to 1930, the Jews handled just about everything from government to banking systems. Were all controlled by Jewish people. And that is the way it was. You have to look at the same thing when it comes to where we are today. That hasn't changed much. You look at Hollywood, you look at the big banks, it's predominantly Jewish Americans, and it's predominantly conservatives in certain areas and aspects. When it comes to agriculture, when it comes to petroleum, when it comes to oil, things of that effect, yes, it is predominantly those Fortune 500s are conservative. But if you look at most of the Fortune 500s, whether it's commerce or retail or digital goods or things like Facebook and Amazon, et cetera, those are predominantly ran by Silicon Valley, California, and predominantly liberal type CEOs and companies. There is no hidden boogeyman inside the Conservative Party, but somehow they continue to blame us and subjugate that we are the deplorables. We are the racists, the homophobes, the xenophobes, the transphobes. And this is being said constantly by Barack Obama. It was said by Hillary Clinton. It's been told by Joe Biden. He stood up there on that stage with his fists in the air. The only thing he was missing was an Adolf Hitler mustache. It was so reminiscent of Nazi Germany and pointing fingers at MAGA Republicans as being the detriment of society. This is the shift. These are the similarities, and where we differ is nobody on the right is saying and doing these type of things at all. You don't hear this from our politicians. You certainly hear this from the left constantly, and it's a message that it's been beaten into everyone's head ad nauseum in academia and in the living room and on TVs.
Against the local population. And then identify the Jews as the perpetrators of that. In this particular poster dealing with the discovery of a Soviet crime in Vinnitsa, to identify the Jewish Bolshevik as the perpetrator of that crime.
Is this the original painting?
Yes.
It is?
Yeah. Now the title comes from the New Testament book of John, but instead of having Jesus as a messianic figure, we have Adolf Hitler. And you can see in the painting the way the light emanates off Adolf Hitler's face over the audience. The audience is portrayed as a kind of a microcosm of German society, but it also emphasizes the importance that Hitler and the Nazis placed on the spoken word. That Adolf Hitler believed that the spoken word, far more than the written word, was responsible for all the great events in history. It allowed you direct contact with your audience. That is, you could play upon their hopes, fears, and frustrations. You could get immediate feedback about what worked and what didn't work. And all that became important as you tailored your message.
How do you see this as relevant to today? I mean, what does this tell us about today's political propaganda, if anything?
An exhibition like this raises questions about how we address propaganda. Is it through restricting speech, or is it more of the American marketplace of ideas that is the best way to address what one might consider offensive speech? And also, how to evaluate all the information that we're bombarded with today, and how to make educated, informed decisions.
Probably one of the best videos laying out an entire country focusing on one singular issue for all of its problems. And this is no more clear than when it comes to the overall loathing and vitriol towards conservative Americans. And although some of that is warranted, and I can understand, especially as recent as 2014, the Republican Party was on a very bad track, and it's one that I was ashamed to be a part of, and I stood away from the Republican Party. In fact, I didn't even vote in 2016 for president. I went down ticket, but I didn't even vote for Donald Trump because I was so disenfranchised with the Republican Party and the push from these neoconservatives who were focused on castigating Muslim people out from the United States and saying that we were going to be Sharia law and that somehow is taking over. This was very reminiscent of what's happening today, that Nazism and fascism is going to create this overall black hole in democracy and wind up consuming all of us. This doesn't work. Americans can see through this crap. They saw it through it with 2014. They're going to see through it with Democrats. This is why they don't want Biden. Nobody wants Biden. They want Biden out of office. They'll take anyone other than Biden. If the Democrats put anyone up there, they have a very good chance of winning. Same thing with Republicans. This type of language needs to end. It needs to stop. Democracy, the republic, Republicans and Democrats are antithetical to fascism. Fascism isn't on the list of either of those parties. Socialism is not on the list of either of those parties. They are antithetical to our Constitution. They're antithetical to our republic. And for anyone to say that Democrats are all communists and Republicans are all Nazis and fascists, simply they're watching way too much of this shit. There is a very small portion of both parties which are the root of most of the dissension and division in this country. And unfortunately, they get most of the airtime because there is that effort I'm talking about. There is that focus to divide us and keep us distracted so they can go ahead and continue to do what they always do, which is to assert power from the American people and give it to themselves. Folks, thanks for watching the Don't Unfriend Me show. I know it was a long one, but I do appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed the show, come back tonight, 8 o'clock. Olivia and I will be on live. That's my wife. She's beautiful. She sits to my right. She's also extremely smart, and she always adds that fire to the show whenever we need it. Please stop on by and see it. You can also pick up some clothes, some hats, some shirts, all that type of stuff over at thedumbshow.com. You can stop on by and get 10% by using code DUMB10. Thanks for watching, and I will see you tonight. God bless.
I'm David Boreanaz with the Cast of SEAL team, and we have an important message for returning vets.
We want you to know if you're struggling to cope, there's help and it's just a phone call away.
The Veterans Crisis Line is staffed with experienced professionals who know your struggles.
There's no greater sacrifice in service to our country. We're able to enjoy our freedoms because of it.
Your service is important. You are important.
For vets and their families, the Veterans Crisis Line is here to help 24 hours a day. Please call